So we've all seen it over the last few years, right? Countless legacy companies, I mean, absolute giants of industry just suddenly collapsing.
Right. Just totally wiping out.
Yeah, wiping out. And this is after surviving, massive trade wars, a global pandemic, huge technological disruptions, even entire national economies are just crawling along, struggling to recover.
It's a very sluggish landscape right now.
Extremely sluggish. And,
Mhm.
if you ask around, most people assume it's just a money issue. They think, well, the funding dried up, or the supply chain broke, or maybe it was just a bad government policy.
That's always the default answer, yeah. They ran out of runway.
Exactly, they ran out of runway. But for this deep dive, we're going to show you that the real reason is something completely different. It is, honestly, it's like this invisible black hole that everyone just entirely ignores.
And it's a concept that completely flips our understanding of how businesses actually survive disruption.
Completely flicks it. Because the real killer isn't a lack of capital, it's a massive, fatal delay in human cognition.
Yes, the cognitive lag.
The cognitive lag. And we have the cold, hard data to back this up. We're looking at this mind-blowing study by economist Thomas Tribes from Munich University and Justin Tumlinson from Exeter University, published by the National Bureau of Economic Research. It's called Learning to Forecast the Hard Way.
It's a fantastic piece of research.
It really is. And the mission today is to unpack this because the data is just a total slap in the face to common sense.
It is because, well, let's set the stage here. When we face a huge regime change, and I mean things like the fallout from Brexit or sudden globalization reversals, or just a brand new technology dropping out of nowhere, the prevailing assumption is always that humans are hyper-adaptable.
Right, like we just figure it out instantly.
Exactly. Politicians and economists, they tend to assume that once the new rules are set, the market and the people in it will just snap into place. They'll instantly adapt.
Like downloading a software update. Boom, installed. You're good to go.
Right, the plug-and-play assumption.
Yeah.
But what Tribes and Tumlinson prove with this data is that this assumption is just dead wrong. The cognitive blind spot it creates is actually fatal to businesses.
Okay, so to prove something this massive, to prove how deadly this cognitive lag is, we can't just look at a few tech startups pivoting in Silicon Valley, right? We need something bigger.
Much bigger. You need a crucible.
Yeah, an ultimate limit test, a high-stakes, real-world experiment where you're basically betting the fate of half a country.
And we have one. We have the 1990 reunification of Germany. It's arguably the most brutal, pristine, natural experiment in modern economic history.
Let's paint the picture for everyone listening, because you have to feel how abrupt this was. Overnight, East German firms, which had spent 40 years entirely inside a master-planned communist economy, were violently yanked into a mature Western capitalist free market.
Yanked is the right word. I mean, they were pulled straight into the deep end.
Just dragged into it. And everybody at the time, the naive assumption was, oh, this is great. Just give them the Deutschmark, give them Western laws, and watch the East German economy take off like a rocket.
Right. They thought the superior capitalist machinery would just do the work. The system is better, so the results will be instantly better.
But the data tells a completely different story. And where does this data actually come from? Because it's not just a bunch of people guessing in hindsight, is it?
No, not at all. This is where the IFO Business Climate Survey comes in. It's this massive, ongoing, real-time data set. They survey manufacturing firms every single month.
Every single month.
Yes, and they ask these managers two vital questions. First, how is your actual business right now? And second, what are your expectations for the next 6 months? Are things going to get better, worse, or stay the same?
So they're constantly testing their predictions against reality.
Exactly. And because West German firms have been taking the survey for decades, we knew the baseline. We knew the normal margin of error for a functioning free market.
Okay, so then 1991 rolls around, the wall is down, and they start giving this survey to the East German managers. What actually happens?
Well, the researchers kindly excluded 1991 just to account for administrative confusion. Just learning how to fill out the forms.
Give them a buffer year.
Right. But then you look at the data from 1992, and things were completely out of control. When you look at the chart, the West German forecast errors are just this flat, stable line.
A normal heartbeat.
Yeah. But the East German line, it enters the chart in 1992 as this towering, erratic spike. East German firms were making forecasting errors that were double the magnitude of their West German counterparts. Double.
Wait, really double the error rate?
Yes, they'd entirely lost their grip on the underlying mechanics of the market.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because if you're listening to this, you might be thinking these East German managers were just, bad at their jobs. But that's not it at all.
No, they were highly experienced professionals.
Right. They had run massive factories for decades. It's like taking an expert pilot of a prop plane and you just drop them into the cockpit of a fighter jet mid-flight.
That's a great analogy.
And you just expect them to fly it. The physics of the air are the same, sure, but they have completely lost their perception of how the machine actually responds to the environment.
Exactly. In their old planned economy, the state told them exactly how many units to produce. The state assigned them their suppliers. The state bought the final product.
So forecasting didn't even exist as a concept for them.
It was an administrative task, not a predictive one. So when they were dropped into a free market, they were entirely blind.
Now, hold on, because I know what a skeptic is going to say right now. If I'm playing devil's advocate, I'd say, wait a minute. Couldn't someone just point out that the East German factories were terrible? They had outdated Soviet-era equipment. Their supply chains were a disaster.
That is always the first argument, yes.
Right. You'd say their actual physical market was just objectively chaotic. So obviously their predictions were wrong. The reality was just a mess.
It feels like common sense. You assume the physical environment is to blame. But the researchers anticipated this, and the data they found is an absolute slap in the face to that logic.
Total slap in the face. Tell them what happened.
Okay, so the survey didn't just ask for predictions, right? It also tracked the actual business realities these firms were experiencing month to month.
Right, the ground truth.
When the researchers analyzed those actual realities in 1992, just over a year after reunification, the correlation coefficient between the actual business conditions of the East and West German firms spiked to over 0.8.
Oh, wow. Over 0.8. So for anyone who doesn't do statistics every day, a 1.0 means they are perfect identical twins. So a 0.8 means they are practically moving in lockstep.
Exactly. If the West German factories had a boom month, the East German factories had a boom month. If the West dipped, the East dipped.
So they were swimming in the exact same economic water. The physical reality of the markets had completely merged.
The realities had synchronized perfectly. They were dealing with the same interest rates, the same unified currency, the same consumer base. The excuse that their physical market was just different or worse was completely destroyed by the data.
Here's where it gets really interesting, right? Because the market reality had synchronized. The physical world was unified. But the East German entrepreneurs' brains were still living in 1989.
Yes. Their expectations were entirely decoupled from the actual reality they were living in.
So they are standing in a perfectly functioning capitalist system, but they're completely cognitively blind to it. And this isn't just some abstract spreadsheet problem. We need to talk about the actual physical cost of this ignorance.
Yeah.
Because it's ruinous.
It is absolute financial ruin. When a company cannot understand the rules of a new world, they don't just, sit on their hands. They make decisions.
Right, you still have a business to run.
And the paper highlights a really insidious psychological trap here. When faced with this entirely alien system, the East German managers didn't become overly cautious. They actually suffered from a massive, completely unwarranted spike of optimism.
Wow. Over-optimism.
Yes, and that optimism acted like a poison. They thought the free market was just this magic wand that would guarantee growth.
So they start forecasting massive booms that just don't exist in reality.
Exactly. And the paper outlines 3 devastating physical manifestations of these bad predictions. I call it the triad of destruction.
Okay, let's watch through the triad. What's number 1?
Number 1 is massive inventory gluts. Because these managers are so optimistic, they buy a ton of raw materials, they run the machines at full speed, and they build products for a demand that simply does not exist in the new system.
So you just end up with warehouses stuffed to the ceiling with dead product. You just turned all your liquid cash into steel that nobody wants.
Right. Which leads directly to consequence number 2,
Yep.
idle capacity. Anticipating this imaginary boom, they expanded. They kept workers on the line, they leased new space. But without actual market demand, you suddenly have factories sitting completely empty and workers with nothing to do. You misread the supply chain entirely.
You're paying for a massive infrastructure that is generating $0.
Exactly. And that brings us to the third and final piece of the triad, plunging profitability.
The ultimate killer.
And this wasn't just, subjective bad feelings on a survey. The researchers mapped these prediction errors directly to hard accounting profitability data.
Oh, so they proved the link.
They proved it. The worse your cognitive forecasting error was, the faster you were actively bleeding cash flow.
So if you're listening to this right now, think about what this means for you. If you are a business owner or a manager and you're staring down some huge new tech landscape, this proves that a cognitive lag isn't just an oops moment. It's not a minor slip up. Every single drop of a bad prediction eventually pulls together into a flood of red ink that'll absolutely drown your business.
It's the active destruction of your own balance sheet, driven purely by an outdated mental model.
Which brings up, honestly, the most agonizing question of the whole deep dive. If adapting to a new system is this dangerous, how long does it actually take for a human brain to format itself and learn the new rules?
It's the critical question.
So I want you to guess, as you're listening to this, think about it. A massive disruption hits your industry. How long until the seasoned experts figure it out? 3 months? A year?
Yeah.
Maybe 3 years if it's really complicated.
Well, the answer is just suffocating.
Hitting with it.
9 years.
9 years.
It took until the year 2001 for East German firms to finally reduce their prediction errors down to the normal baseline level of West German firms.
That is insane. From 1992 to 2001, they were just floundering.
The researchers calculated the actual rate of learning. It was an agonizingly slow, grueling 5% improvement per year.
5%. So next year, you're still making 95% the exact same cognitive errors you made the year before? Now, I have to jump in because when I saw that number, my first thought was about survivorship bias.
Yes, the bankruptcy argument.
Right. Like, wouldn't a skeptic say, hey, wait, this isn't people learning. This is just all the bad East German companies slowly going bankrupt. And by 2001, the only people left taking the survey were the rare geniuses who understood capitalism on day one.
It's a very fair critique.
Mm.
But the economists, they completely dismantled that counterargument. And without getting bogged down in heavy academic jargon, they used a method called firm fixed effects.
Let's break that down for people because it's a huge point.
Basically, the statistical model locked onto the specific individual companies that survived the entire decade.
Oh.
They weren't just taking group averages where the weak ones fell out. They tracked the exact same manager, sitting at the exact same desk, running the exact same surviving factory year after year.
Oh, wow. So they proved it was the same people slowly figuring it out.
Exactly. The same survivors were only learning at a rate of 5% a year. It was a genuine biological rewiring of human cognition.
And they also controlled for physical problems too, right? Like broken machines.
Yes, they factored out impairment. So even when an East German factory reported that all their machines were working perfectly, they had all the raw materials, no physical issues whatsoever.
Everything is humming.
Everything is humming. They still generated massive forecasting errors. The broken expectations existed completely independently of the physical reality.
Man, the irony of that is just massive. It took politicians literally one single night to change the currency, rewrite the laws, and flip the system. But to format and reboot the cognitive hard drives of the human beings inside that system. A decade.
A full decade.
So just when you think you've got your head around this timeline, there is this massive, totally anti-common sense paradox hidden in the data. And it's about who struggled the most.
This is my favorite part of the study. It really challenges how we think about business strategy.
Let's set up the logical assumption. You have two types of East German firms. One just stays local, selling consumer goods to their neighbors. The other type is exporting globally. They are out in the world, dealing with international buyers, competing across borders. Surely the exporting firms adapted faster, right? They were worldly, they were savvy.
That is exactly what anyone would assume.
Yeah.
The trial by fire, right. Put them in the toughest environment and they'll learn quickest.
But the data says the exact opposite.
The exact opposite. The researchers found that East German exporting firms and firms making intermediate goods like parts for other businesses had massively higher initial forecasting errors than the local domestic guys.
They were worse.
Substantially worse.
Why? How does that even make sense?
Because the global market is an infinitely more complex system. When you are thrown entirely blind into a new environment, jumping into the deep end doesn't teach you to swim faster.
It just drowns you quicker.
Exactly. The local baker only has to learn local prices and local demand. The cognitive load is small, but the exporter, they suddenly have to understand foreign tariffs, global supply chain logistics, international currency fluctuations.
All while using a brain that is still wired for communism.
Right. The complexity of the global supply chain delivered a much more destructive cognitive collapse.
If you don't know the rules of the game, playing at the local park is confusing, but playing in the World Cup will absolutely break you.
The complexity paralyzes the learning process. The deeper the water, the faster you drown.
Okay, we need to take all of this historical data from 1990 and smash it right into the present moment. Because the listener has to feel the immediate relevance of this. This isn't just a history lesson. This is the real logic of the world today.
The authors of the paper are very direct about this. The mechanics of this decade-long cognitive lag apply to any major regime change, and we are surrounded by them right now.
We really are.
The paper explicitly points out things like the Brexit fallout, the U.S.-China trade wars, and the massive post-COVID behavioral shifts in the market.
And I want to make a very clear note here for everyone listening. When we talk about Brexit or trade tariffs, we are not taking a political stance at all.
No, strictly mechanical.
We aren't saying these policies are good or bad. We are treating them purely as objective, structural economic shocks that change the rules of the market. We're just looking at how human cognition handles the new rules.
Because regardless of your politics, when a tariff is enacted, the underlying math of the supply chain changes instantly. And the data tells us the humans running those supply chains won't accurately understand the new math for years.
Just look at the supply chain chaos after COVID. Everyone blamed the physical stuff. The ships were stuck. There weren't enough truck drivers.
The broken machines excuse again.
Exactly. But if you apply this paper's logic, a huge amount of that chaos retailers over-ordering massive amounts of inventory they couldn't sell that was pure cognitive lag. They experienced a shock, got overly optimistic, and triggered the exact same triad of destruction we saw in 1992.
They absolutely did. But the ultimate parallel today, the one that is fundamentally rewriting the foundational code of every single industry, is artificial intelligence.
AI. It is the perfect parallel.
It is. The global supply chains and the basic workflows of the modern office are violently shifting right now.
I mean, if you are a modern knowledge worker or an executive sitting in a C-suite trying to map out a 5-year plan, and you're staring at an enterprise AI platform, you are in the exact same position as that bewildered East German factory manager in 1990.
You're suddenly dropped into a totally alien paradigm.
Your intuition, the gut feeling you spent 20 years building in your industry, is suddenly entirely obsolete because the physical reality, the underlying technology, has already changed.
The revolution has already happened. The AI tools are deployed. The rules are different. A developer can write code in 10 seconds that used to take 3 days. The math of productivity has fundamentally changed overnight.
And think about the deep water paradox here. The companies that are trying to deploy AI across their entire massive, complex, global operations on day one, they are jumping into the deep end without knowing how to swim.
They are maximizing their prediction errors. They're going to suffer catastrophic financial bleeding because their mental models lag years behind the tech.
So we've covered a lot of ground today. Let's recap this journey. Humans suffer from a fatal cognitive lag.
A totally invisible black hole.
The data absolutely proves that physical reality changes instantly, but human expectations take a full decade to catch up. And during that phase, over-optimism acts like a poison, leading to the triad of destruction, inventory gluts, empty factories, and financial ruin.
And remember the paradox. The more complex the system, the harder the fall.
Exactly. So here is the final provocative thought we want to leave you with. Think about the world right now. The technology, the new rules, the AI integrations, they are already here. The physical revolution is over.
The water level has already changed.
It has, but the cognitive chasm is still right in front of us. Our brains are so much slower than the tools we invent. The world today might just be repeating the exact same invisible crisis of 1990, and almost nobody realizes it. So look at your career, look at your business. How many 9-year learning cycles do you have left?